and you were hoping to go to SpaceX today for what purpose?
He does this every time I come. I'm never telling you where I'm going again. I left Plant 42, came straight to you, and now I'm going to SpaceX.
Okay, what were you doing at Plant 42?
Just saying, hey.
Snooping around?
Oh, yeah. I run in there with a little back bag and, you know.
So you have credentials that allows you to walk onto Plant 42 anytime you want?
Not going there.
Well, can I see what you just came from Plant 42?
Yeah.
What's on your person? Can we see what's on your?
You want to see my
No, I imagine you have to have a little card or a badge or something when you walk on.
You might have that, but they take it back when you leave.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're a visitor, you would sign in.
He's trying to milk me into those secondary questions to get me to admit it.
So did you see anything interesting at Plant 42 today?
No, but I got to talk to a few people that I wanted to clarify a few things just to make certain the direction. Here's my main goal. Okay. The tangent, obviously, last week is whether or not I was on one or something like that.
Well, let me stop there for a second because you and I texted about that. You were saying that, hey, I'm concerned that people are getting worked up about me hinting that I may have flown on one and getting. I don't know. People are pretty skeptical of the whole story.
Yeah, which is fine.
Not just you flying on
right,
one.
which is fine, and I appreciate the reason why I appreciate that is because that will get people to look into it to debunk me. And if they can debunk me, then that's great. Go for it. But the difference is that the information that I'm giving as it comes out, then it will obviously verify me down the road. I can't give out sources, and that people don't like that. I can't say how I acquired the information. People don't like that. And that's just something that you do in the investigative journalism. You know as well as I do. If you have a source that is so embedded that you don't want to do anything to reveal that, or how you acquire information in any way, shape, or form do you want to reveal that, or how you acquired information in 2005, you know, because it's different.
But let me ask you, why do you feel it's okay to reveal what you have revealed? I mean, have you?
Well, I haven't revealed anything that's going to have the government go, I'm a traitor, I'm a Edward Snowden, toss me over.
But you really are to this day the only person
Correct.
who has come out and said that I'm aware of. And especially someone who's claiming I have this information from the government,
right?
That these Tic Tac UFOs are U.S. Air Force craft.
And also, if you go back to 2004 and fast forward to 2017, that's how long it took for the guys that were actually there and saw it to come out with their information. So
their information being simply acknowledging that we saw this.
Exactly.
Right, but it's a huge leap to say that the video's real. We encountered UFOs. Mm-hmm. We don't know what they are. That's what they've said so far. Yes, that's a big revelation. They've never confirmed that before. Very significant. We were just talking to Nick Cook a couple hours ago, and he was acknowledging how significant that is in the UFO community, that for the first time, the government saying, yes, there's UFOs. Mm-hmm. But then you've taken it a whole nother step by saying that, and it's U.S. technology, U.S. craft.
Right.
So you're the only one that I'm aware of who's come out and said that.
As far as I know.
And why do you feel comfortable that it's okay, that the government is okay with you sharing that information that they shared with you?
I don't. Now, whether or not the government is concerned is more or less the question, as opposed to whether or not they're concerned that I am the one giving the information. The information is going to come out anyway, so it doesn't matter. It's just eventually going to come out.
And that's because of the radar you mentioned.
Phased array radar is obviously coming out, and that's what's going to see them, or has the ability to basically track them. The important thing is the tracking of it. It's not necessarily to see something. If we come out with new technology, which we have, and a B-2 bomber flies over your city, they will see the B-2 bomber, okay? But to track it and say, wow, it looks like it's going to Cuba, it would be an issue. So that's where you get into some tricky area of phased array radar, which can track well over 100 objects, well over 200 actually, at simultaneously live without waiting for a sweep and all this other stuff. So the issue, the bigger issue is what are people going to do with the information and who is it going to be important for? And now that the technology on both sides of the game are catching up to each other. You've got the actual craft that's designed to avoid radar going up against radar that's designed to find the craft. And all around the world, everyone, I mean, phased array radar is not new. It's been out for many years. I mean, the first cruisers that came out with it were late 80s, 90s, and what have you here, but it's been out since late 1800s. So it's not new, exactly new technology, but the newer technology variations of it are becoming much more accurate in its ability to track the objects that we're talking about here. So I think a lot of the things that I'm talking about is not necessarily the government saying, Mike, go tell them this, the disinfo side, or me coming up with my own speculation. It's kind of over the years of talking to people and then coming up with my own conclusion as to what I feel it is or what's going on. So I have my opinions on the matter, and I'll state what I feel is fact, and then I'll let you know what I feel is speculation or an area that I'm getting into that I don't know anything about.
Well, but I think it's pretty clear to say that it is not your opinion that these are U.S. craft. You are saying
Absolutely. Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind. There's zero doubt.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and the reason you know that is by information that you gathered and or were provided from the U.S. government.
No.
Let me say that again.
No.
The reason the
U.S. government didn't come to me and just give me information.
No, but you got the information from them.
That's correct. I just want to be clear.
Yeah, that's why I said
because how people will pick this apart later.
That's why I said either gathered or were provided by, gathered from or provided by the U.S. government.
Or people who worked in the government, not necessarily that would be identified as the government. Because people view me and you, if we had a job at the government and I told you something, I said, hey, man, take a look at this and tell me what you think it is. That's not, in my opinion, the U.S. government giving me information. That's my buddy that's still in saying, hey, I was someone that would look into these things. And
you're pretty confident this a hypothetical buddy who may have shared something with you over beers, let's say.
Very possibly.
Would have, well, since that's what you're doing 80% of the time, would not have a problem with what you're doing now in having this interview, et cetera.
Well, there's several ways this is going to go. One, I'm just making all this up and that blah blah blah. Two, I'm putting people's lives in jeopardy. So I have to be very careful about how I say things, which are going to give me plausible deniability, if you want to look at it that way. But the primary thing is to give the accurate information to the people that actually need it and that I feel could use it. There's guys that were out there that have been ridiculed, made fun of, and just basically lambasted since this information came out. And from one spectrum into the spectrum to the other.
You're talking about the witnesses?
I'm talking about the witnesses, yeah.
Well, but the Navy has already come out and said that, no, these guys really experienced something, so they're not making fun of them saying, ha, ha, you think.
But they haven't really backed them up to the degree that I feel should be done. And keep in mind, too, that it's not necessarily the government. All the government said was that, yes, the videos that were whistleblown are, in fact, unidentified aerial phenomena, and we don't know what they are. That's what they're saying. Of course, that's a lie, but that's what they're saying. So the guys have been lied to. At one instance, they're being vindicated. In the other instance, they're being lied to again. So, yes, these are unidentified aerial phenomena, but, hey, we don't know what they are, which is a lie.
And what about timing? Why now? Because you've been aware of this for at least a couple of years.
Yeah.
Why the timing?
For me?
Yeah.
Part of my timing is the Las Vegas investigation to get that out of the way and behind me. So if this blows up or balloons up, I can be around to help where I can. I don't know.
Actually, come to think of it, that timing is very close. Vegas shooting was October 30th?
Well, you and I discussed this before that. Remember, we discussed this before the video from some other guy, because someone said I had brought out information that had already been put out. Well, yeah, because I had given you this before he had even.
Wait a minute, are you talking about regarding the Tic Tac thing?
Yeah, the Tic Tac.
You and I talked Tic Tac before we talked to Vegas?
No. I'm saying you and I talked Tic Tac before the Ryan was it Weigert? I don't know the guy's last name. Anyway, so his interview came out, but you and I had discussed that beforehand. And so when your show came out, people said I was discussing things that had already come out, which we'd already discussed.
No, I was just making a point that Vegas shooting was October 30th. Do I have the date right?
The actual shooting was on October 1st.
Sorry, October 1st. of 2017.
Correct.
And it was just a little over a month later.
Poor choice of words on my part.
Yeah, a little over a month later in 2017 when you confirmed the existence of these Tic Tacs. So, right, and that they're U.S. technology, or you knew even earlier than that. When did you first know?
In 2005, I listened to the comms. That was just the radio transmissions. We didn't really have an idea. I mean, we kind of knew what was going on, but didn't. Once we heard some call signs, then we knew at least where it was. The other guy knew what it was. He was basically giving me the information. Just say, what do you make of it? And it wasn't him asking me, try to figure out which aircraft this is, which group they belong to, or whatever. He's saying, what in the hell do you think they're talking about? He just said, listen to it and give me your thoughts.
You're saying he knew what it was, though.
Because he had access to other data as well. But he
didn't tell you at that time.
No, I'm not going to say any more than that because that's going to identify kind of how he acquired the information.
But anyway, you had a pretty good idea back in 2005 that this was U.S. technology.
Yeah, I figured it was U.S. technology. And my reasoning for that is more psychological than it is anything tangible, is that if those craft came here and they were from, first off, they're not going to pop up on radar just below San Clemente Island and no one do anything about it. And these things, they were toying with us for days. This wasn't a singular event. This happened over a large period of time with multiple aircraft. Okay, so since that's the case, do you think for a moment we wouldn't go to DEFCON something if these craft are just popping up on our coast, running around, and our Super Hornets cannot keep up with these things?
We've had a couple so-called experts, including Nick Cook, who were very dubious of the idea that the U.S. would test its technology with its own, with another branch of its own military. They just thought that that's not the way the military operates.
Under normal circumstances, I would agree. The problem with that statement is making a blanket statement about that, like he did, is obviously not correct.
Well, I mean, look, there's exceptions
we've been
to every
testing
rule.
ourselves, testing information or testing vehicles and testing drugs or whatever on our military for years. So it's not uncommon.
Yeah.
Well,
and to take a big step back, there's nothing usual about what happened. There's nothing usual about any of this.
Right.
So, to suggest that there's some precedent that matters. But let me go back to
this is out of the norm.
Let me go back to timing. At what point did you sit here today and you're 100% confident it's a fact, it's not your opinion, it's U.S. technology. Yep. When did you become 100% confident of that? How long ago was that? As opposed to speculating, knowing pretty well, et cetera, et cetera.
I would say it would be sometime in 2015, 16 in that range. And I can't go into exact details of why my focus or thought process would have changed. When it was absolutely definitive was in November of 2017. That's when a lot of the information was coming out, that on December 14th or 16th, somewhere in that range, when they actually released that footage. I mean, it was leaking out to a few key people that this was about to happen. And there's some think tanks that go on periodically, just people get on the phone, brainstorm about, hey, what do you think, or what are the implications of this? What's going to happen? So.
When you first became more definitively knowledgeable of it, and you've talked a lot about in November of 17, when your phone wound up flying across country, perhaps with you or not with you, did you? The video footage hadn't leaked at that point. The To the Stars Academy video that started this whole thing from the public's perspective didn't come out until December.
Correct.
Were you aware that was going to be leaked out? Was that already kind of a known thing?
Yes.
So what is the backstory on that?
What wasn't known was, here the issue I have is after it leaked, it was very anticlimactic. There is a huge... I don't know how to describe it any better than just a plethora of video footage that is available that would cover this subject matter. This is one or two events of many. I think upwards of 25 major events and even underwater events that have not been mentioned yet.
And you believe there's video of?
Well, there's not necessarily video, but there's going to be data breaks that'll have the...
So at least 25 encounters between U.S. military and these objects. Is that what you're saying?
Correct, but I'm not privy to that. That would it would be awesome to have Lewis on the show and just try to find out. Now, but there's some differences of opinion after I've heard what he thinks they are.
Remind me, which is what?
My understanding, I watched him briefly on a show where he believed that they were not of this world, which is fine. I have no problem with it.
Luis Elizondo, now with To the Stars, supposedly ran ATIP, although something's been breaking recently where To the Stars now apparently is backing away a little bit from saying that he was the head of ATIP, because apparently there's been some Department of Defense officials that have said, no, that's not true. This guy did not run ATIP. And
well, who did?
I don't know, but apparently he never had an official title that pertained to ATIP. So it is not 1,000% confirmed. And I forget where I'm getting this, so I apologize, but it's an article I read recently where even To the Stars is no longer holding him out as the former head of ATIP. So something's going on there.
Something happened there.
Yeah, whether he really was head of it or not. But anyway, he
was the puppet, so so no one has really denied that.
Do we know how he got the video?
I don't know hardly how he got the video.
Yeah.
That was his job.
So but that means he stole the video.
To leak it out. I get that. Yeah, that was obviously an issue. Now here's the other problem. The government isn't going after him. He's not like Edward Snowden. They're not chasing him around the world saying, hey, you leaked out this information. The government basically confirmed, what he put out was
2 years later, but a year and a half later.
Right. And so with that being said, then the government is obviously not having an issue with this information. They obviously didn't categorically deny any of it. They haven't said that this is not our technology. They basically said they don't know what it is, which is their classic BS answer to just about anything. Well, we don't know this.
What do you think was behind their decision a few months ago to come out and say that it's real and this experience was real? For the Navy, why even confirm that?
That is out of the norm, because normally they would just not say anything. We would just sit here in the dark, and then the conspiracy, they go that direction, I go a different direction, and then eventually we all battle and what have you. But my speculation is that this technology is going to be revealed regardless. Other countries are developing the exact same technology, and they are China being the closest to us, Russia being probably not too far behind. And since this technology is going to be utilized by several countries, go ahead and get it out there and just say, hey, yep, it's there, and we're don't worry, we're the leader of the pack.
Okay, and then back to timing for you as to why you chose to start talking about this when you did. Was that based on some type of a green light that somebody gave you, or is this just getting done with Vegas and feeling it's the right time to take on something else?
I was getting there's a very small group of people that are outside of the government, myself included, that are kind of in the know. We're all in the know for various reasons, okay? Me, I like to snoop around, and I find stuff. That's what I do. I'm very good at it. A couple of the others are people who were in and are out now, so to speak, either working in a civilian or under contract or whatever. And so when you meet someone and you ask them questions, and then you've probably had this before. You meet someone, you ask them some questions, they're not comfortable talking at that moment, and then somehow they want to talk to you off the record. And that's essentially, kind of what happened too. People want to get the information out there. They felt bad about the guys. When the Nimitz Encounters video came out, that video basically has propelled this forward. And my hat's off to them doing that, because those guys need the answers and closure or whatever they need it. And I'm going to try to give them the pieces of the puzzle that I can. I don't have all the answers. I don't know what the propulsion is. I don't know the energy source is or any of that stuff. I have my own ideas after having it in the back of my head for years of toying around, and every now and then I'll sneak over and watch someone's website and go, that kind of makes sense, so that fits. And then you had the patents and all that the last time I was on the show. So you did the same thing, and it's a natural curiosity to figure this stuff out. But these guys need the answers because they lived it.
And are any of these other guys planning on speaking publicly about it?
Well, oddly enough, when a couple of them, when we talked, it was all that gung-ho thing. And then once I said what I said, you go ahead.
So in other words, you guys had a conversation about, hey, let's all start talking about this. And you stepped out first, and then they...
Yeah, there's one person in particular, you know who you are, that we were going to have this as, hey, I got your back, you got my back, that kind of thing. But at the same time, they're still in those industries, and they realize that they would never have another job. I'm out. I'm not in the industry anymore at all, so I don't have to worry about it. I'm not going to go working, pull a DD-254 or go to Booz Allen or any of that stuff. So I'm okay with the information I'm given. The concern factor that I have is that I also, at the same time, have information that would be, in my opinion, considered a concern for national security. So I will not divulge that. And if you dabble in that area, I will obviously push back, and that's important.
So what pushback or feedback, et cetera, blowback have you gotten so far as a result of the interview from anyone kind of inside the community, the in the know community?
Oh, in the know community?
Yes.
I have zero.
Okay. Nobody's saying, like, I can't believe that Turber guy did that.
Nope.
Okay.
No.
From outside the community, we know what that is. That's YouTube and Facebook and everything. Who thinks that you're a loon?
I'm a loon, a quack. I'm here for some reason, or you're going to write me a check at the end of this interview for $50,000, and then we're all happy. But that's obviously not the case. And so, what is my motivation to do this? Why is it, or whatever? And my motivation to do this is literally the same motivation I had for Vegas, which is to go in there, get the information for the victims, and here's the same thing.
So let's try to address some of the cynics out there, just to follow up and clean up a few things. So one thing that you mentioned to me is that you had been in touch with some Nimitz folks that worked on the Nimitz or around that. You're giving me a blank stare like I'm not supposed to be saying this, but anyway, you can confirm or deny, but that
I don't know
that you provided some information to them, and that checked out, and that caused them to think, oh wow, this guy knows what he's talking about.
Well, that, or I obviously have more. In other words, I have another piece of the puzzle that fits, and that one of the guys said, yeah, that's actually pretty accurate, that they didn't mention on anywhere I've seen, and that might give them a little bit more, or give me credibility to them. I don't care about anyone else believing me or not believing me. I care about those guys believing the information, or it's going to come out anyway. So the information I give at some point in time will come out, and then we'll go, oh, okay, well, Mike said that a couple of years ago.
Well, I mean, as you sit here now, you probably don't know one way or the other, but for instance, Fravor, I forget his first name, is it David? Fravor?
I think so, yeah.
Fravor, who was the Quadrants commander, who was on Rogan a few weeks ago.
I still haven't seen that.
Saying that he didn't know what it was. Do you know whether or not he's aware of the interview, or do we have reactions from any of those types of folks yet?
No, I don't know. I have no contact with. I have no contact. Well, I can't say no contact with anyone, but I don't have any contact with any of the pilots. Let's put it that way. So I have no idea.
Okay, so what is this kind of new thing or whatever that the Nimitz guys kind of said, yeah, that checks out, this guy sounds legit?
Well, part of the information I basically put on a public post was I just went in there and said, because I contacted them.
That might be, I may have that post. Is this the thing that you wrote to Ryan?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought it might be a good idea to go through this a little bit. So you're saying what you wrote in this post, Nimitz guys read this and like, oh.
I'm saying that most likely, no, they didn't come to me and say, hey, we read your post, you gave some information, blah, 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 we believe you now. There wasn't all that, kumbaya kind of stuff. It was just the post, and then they did contact me. So, and that's where we're at the moment.
Yeah, so let's go through the post a little bit, because there's a lot of acronyms in here that I don't know what they mean, so I'm just curious. So you point out to him, Ryan, who had been, what was his job?
Ryan, I believe, was in charge of the helicopters on Princeton.
Okay.
I'm not sure exactly. Like the maintenance of them or something.
So whenever I give an acronym, just tell me what it means, and I'll keep reading. Your guests were from ARL.
Mm-hmm. That's Air Force Research Laboratories. And then the NRL is Navy Research Laboratories.
Is that a place? or is that a department?
It's essentially like if you want to use the term department, yeah, that would fit. It's like a department. It's their advanced research arms.
Are they headquartered at Plant 42? ARL?
No, I don't think so. No, ARL I think is Wright-Patterson.
Okay, so they were from ARL and out of Wright-Patterson on TDY.
Temporary tour of duty.
Temporary tour of duty.
Yeah, that means they're there for a
temporary. Wait a minute, TDY, temporary.
I know it doesn't. The letters don't work, but it's temporary duty. Basically, you're given orders to go somewhere. But you may be there for a day, a week, a month, however long.
Okay, and that's referring to the guys that were operating the Tic Tacs, basically.
No, that's referring to the guys that went and picked up the data from the ship.
Gotcha. The two guys.
Right.
That
I think there were more than two. I'm not 100% positive, but I'm fairly certain there were more than two. They may have only seen two guys in flight suits come in, but I believe there were more than two.
Yeah, and we covered this in a recent interview with the guy who Tim. Was Tim's
McMillan.
Tim McMillan, who did a big article for Popular Mechanics and has another one coming out on Vice, but he did extensive interviews with all those guys.
Right.
And
he's doing a fine job, by the way.
Yeah.
I read the article yesterday.
Yeah. And those guys say that they were the main ones telling the story that the stuff was picked up. It was picked up off the Princeton and off the Nimitz. And there was this slight contradiction or controversy because Fravor said, oh, nobody came and picked up anything, and these guys are saying
that's a problem.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
So Fravor may not have
I
been
don't
privy
know
to that.
why he would say that.
He may not have been privy to it. I mean, he might have been somewhere else.
He should have been, I would think.
Okay, so they said, and left Princeton bound for Vandenberg and Plant 42 and then home the following week.
Yeah.
So you're saying that the two or more guys who picked up all of the hard drives or tape or whatever else they would have picked up, right, all the evidence, they left the Princeton.
Now, I'm not sure which order. I may have the Vandenberg and Plant 42 order backwards or what have you.
So I can understand why they'd go to Plant 42. Why did they go to Vandenberg?
That's where they were flown actually out of. They flew out from Vandenberg, out the 80s, and then down the coast, and then back.
And then they went home the following week, meaning home back to Wright-Patterson in Ohio.
Yeah.
So the guys that came to the Princeton and the Nimitz to pick up all the evidence originally had come out from Ohio on the special temporary duty assignment to pick this stuff up.
Yeah, and I don't know how long that assignment was. I don't know if there was several weeks of beforehand setting up and getting information or learning the ship's operations and stuff like that. But obviously the commanders on board knew what was going on. They were in I believe I've now since found out they were in admiral's quarters and what have you. So the guys were theirs. I mean, it's quite clear.
Okay, this was an Air Force operation in conjunction with DARPA. We've talked about DARPA and NRL.
Navy Research Lab.
Navy Research Lab. To test the craft commonly referred to as Tic Tac. Your Tic Tac group were made at Plant 42, we've talked about that before, and trucked to Vandenberg in 53-foot trucks.
Yep.
That was a question I had. Why were they taken to Vandenberg, the Tic Tacs?
Well, the thing is, as far as I know, the information that I've received is that they have not flown them out of Plant 42. They didn't just take off and go and go to their destination. So they're one of the bases that I believe would operate them is Vandenberg or Beale, but mainly Vandenberg. Vandenberg is a good for this particular incident. It has its own corridor going out to the ocean. They could dip down, come back in. The 80s is
where exactly is Vandenberg?
Ventura. If you head out towards the coast that way.
Ventura, California, and relatively close to the coast.
Yep. Yeah, it's right
So
on
that-
the coast.
so-
That handles a lot of the space operations.
So for lack of a better word, that would be a safer place to have them leave from to go do their exercises over the water as opposed to Plant 42, which is out halfway to Vegas?
Yeah, Plant 42 is just on the other side of the mountains, and
But you could, I mean...
You could do a lot of things there and no one would ever see it.
But I guess why not just fly it direct from Plant 42 out to the ocean?
That I don't know. The idea for the trucks is that now this is the speculation part because I don't have this answer, but the size that they were made, and I think you had mentioned in the show with, I think maybe it was Tim, that the size would, or you were basically stating what I said the size was. The size is around 46 feet, but it's the same length or very similar to the same length as a F-18. The width, however, is a little bit more narrow than I think was stipulated.
Oh, I think I said something like 20 feet.
Yeah.
What do you think the width is?
I don't know exactly, but I believe it's small enough to fit on a truck to where it would not have to be so far oversized or oversized possibly at all.
So if you saw one of these trucks driving down the road, it would look like a normal 18-wheeler.
Right.
You say the Tic Tac is about 46 feet long, so they can be trucked from Vandenberg. They were flown low and slow via RPA, which is
remote pilot
pilots, out past ADIZ.
ADIZ. That's the ADIZ is a line that goes around the United States. That if aircraft coming into the United States, they cross that line, they have to ident before they come in.
Okay. And dipped in just below San Clemente Island, below normal radar.
Right. Now here's the iffy part. There's a Navy installation on San Clemente Island. I don't know how active it is, or if they flew them there, dropped them there, and waited, and that was like some sort of station they would go back and forth to. That I don't know, but I do know that their path, supposedly from the information I gathered, was from Vandenberg down there, and then they dipped into the training area where the Nimitz group was.
From there, Spy 1B.
Spy 1 Bravo.
Which is?
That's the phased array radar that's on the Princeton.
Okay. Should have acquired their tracks. After that, it was all United States Air Force testing how Nimitz CIC, which is CIC,
Combat Information Center,
would respond in an effort to gain knowledge on how our own forces would react to them. I mean, one question I have about that is, well, I guess this is back in 2004, so they're still at that point relatively new. What do we know about if 15 years ago we had this technology, and I think you're saying even longer than that? What kind of advancements has there been since what was flown?
Yeah, my understanding now is there's 3 variants. So you have the original Tic Tac, then you have another variant which is commonly referred to as a gimbal, and there's apparently another one that I don't think we've seen a video on that has a specific job to do wherever it's going to go, which will be a different function than the other 2.
And are they all still under the Air Force, as far as you know?
No, I think when you told me the Navy had the patent, I don't think they're all. Now, this part I don't know. All I know is how they relate to the Air Force. As far as I know, they're all operated by the Air Force, but in conjunction with.
Someone commented that, wait a minute, if this thing is also can serve as an underwater craft / submarine, then that would be Navy. So how could this be Air Force?
Well, that's what I'm getting at. Is I don't know. Past the Air Force, I don't know if the Navy has their own variants of the craft. Now, I'm sure they do. They would have to by this point.
But you wouldn't agree that necessarily if the Air Force develops something that also goes underwater, that they would have to then involve the Navy?
I don't think there's some hard-written line that says, hey, if one of our crafts is, because the Air Force has a lot of boats.
Well, and furthermore, I think one thing that people have been confused by is that you're not saying that the Navy was not aware of this. You're saying that people below a certain level at the Navy were not aware of this.
Absolutely.
But the Secretary of the Navy would have known about it.
Absolutely.
And the commander of that strike force would have known about it.
As evidenced by their actions, if these things would have been there, they would have been listed as either hostile or something close to that. If an object is flying around in our airspace, especially around a carrier group, and no one seemed to care enough to take extra action to take these things down. And they were there. It wasn't a one-day event. This is over several days. So as soon as you see these things pop up on the radar, take them out. Because if you don't know what they are and they're just zipping all over the place, well, let's test our missiles. Let's test our lasers and see if we can take these things out.
And furthermore, you wouldn't think you would send your F-18s out there to check them out without having weapons on them.
Yeah, no loadout. Just nothing on the rails. And the same thing happened off the coast of Jacksonville. It was a similar situation. So my opinion is this. Both coasts were tested using two different craft, two different time frames, almost the identical same way, because this test down here was so successful that they were able to gather a lot of data from it, and that they realized that, okay, this is working pretty well. I believe the Tic Tac is either fully operational or very close to it, but I'm pretty sure it's operational at this point. As far as the other craft, that one I don't know if it's operational.
And what do you know about how this craft could theoretically be weaponized?
That is, now this is me going off of the information I have. As far as I know, the craft cannot launch, can't open up a bay door and start dropping bombs and things like that, because that will disrupt whatever,
the vacuum
bubble or
field.
whatever's around it. That's my understanding. Now, but I don't know that for sure because I don't know the propulsion. The understanding I have is that based on the particular contractor that made Tic Tac, or the contractors that made Tic Tac, is that its purpose was more geared towards some form of surveillance activity, gathering intelligence and stuff like that, because you can put them on point anywhere on the planet in 17 minutes. So that's important. So I believe that's it for that one. Now, as far as the classic, let's eventually learn how to weaponize it. Well, yeah, maybe you can put a laser on it that might fire through and may not affect it, but that I don't know. I'm not that good on the physics.
And I know you keep saying you're not sure about the propulsion or source of energy, but is it your understanding that there's been some major breakthrough when it comes to energy creation that's on this craft? And something that could have relevance to energy production for domestic use?
Absolutely. And the reason why I say that is because these things were airborne for a very long period of time. Obviously, the amount of energy that you would think would be necessary to keep a craft like this aloft and do the actions that it does would be enormous, or maybe not. Maybe.
Now, what do you know about the nuclear reactors we have on subs? Well, and on the aircraft.
All of our subs have nuclear.
And in fact, our
aircraft carriers.
Aircraft carriers are nuclear powered, right?
Many of our ships are nuclear powered.
But I imagine I don't know what the size of the reactor is.
Well, keep in mind, nuclear power, you're not getting the power directly from the nuclear fuel source. It is heating up, other chemicals over water or what have you to create steam to turn the turbines to make the engines go. That's how that basically works. It's not like you take a little nuclear pellet, put it inside, and you can run a city. It doesn't work that way.
So the ultimate question is: could the same type of nuclear power that generates our submarines and our aircraft carriers be on a Tic Tac?
I can let's put it this way. My opinion is absolutely this is not a nuclear powered craft.
Not nuclear powered.
Not nuclear powered at all. No.
So once again, that would be a technology now that's been around for 20 years, and we're not seeing any real world application of this tremendous new form of energy.
You're seeing there's several. The problem is the balance. One is obviously the propulsion, getting it to move, and the other is the power source to give it the propulsion. So how those two interact with each other, I don't know.
But what I'm saying is, if this power source is revolutionary, then that means it has real-world application, and the U.S. government is holding out on putting that to use domestically, which could be great for climate change. It could be great for the cost of energy, et cetera.
Well, I think it's technology that's already been worked on in the civilian sector. And keep in mind the technology for what would be considered anti-gravity has been worked on for 100 years. So with very little success, but there has been some measurable advances, but nothing. I mean, this is you went from A to Z. There was nothing. Once they figured this out, they flipped the switch and it was ready to go.
By the way, did you learn anything more about the universities that it came from? You had mentioned Dundee, which is out of Scotland, and we came upon a name of a guy, Sandy Kim? Kidd, sorry. Is that...
that name rings a bell.
That rings a bell as someone associated with...
Not with... Okay, here's the thing about...
Darn it, I was supposed to test him on that. I was supposed to see
if I knew it?
Yeah.
Well, you're about to find out. What Kidd did was he created a device that essentially lessened the mass of an object. Okay, it was the measurement would be so low that it would be impractical to think that there would be
like a 3% reduction in the weight of it or the mass of it.
0.3%. It was just ridiculously low. So that once I said that, I knew someone would go, well, this guy's obviously crazy because there's no way in hell they could have taken his technology and advanced it that much when it only, produced a 0.3% variance in the weight of an object. But the Russians were also working on it. In 1992, a Russian came out with their variation of how to reduce the mass of an object, and the whole idea is to either reduce the mass of an object or to create a repulsive force that the object can actually ride through, or a combination thereof. That's the part where it gets tricky. That's the part I don't claim to have all the answers, but I've looked into it just like anyone else has. I can talk about it, but when I talk about those subjects, it's not from me knowing it from the sources saying, okay, well, yeah, Mike knows the propulsion, he knows this. I mean, the guys, obviously, I could just sit there and read the internet all day long and come up with all this stuff, but that's not the case. So the propulsion is different, and it's a whole nother thing. It's not nuclear as far as I know. But as far as the anti-gravity effect of it, that was studied. It's using technology that would have come from some of the Dundee experiments, some of the 1992 Russian paper that came out, and also North Carolina University, as you know.
Tar Heels.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the second.
That would be one of the ones that has.
And is there a name of someone there that
I don't? You can look, just like you found Sandy. I don't know the names of. I know that they created their own internal research for anti-gravity, and that they've had some limited success. But I think what's happening is that when DARPA gets involved, and this is where the magic happens. When the universities do their experimenting and what have you, they can only go so far. DARPA has the pockets, and DARPA can push a program a certain direction. If DARPA can use something as a weapon or as something for the military, money just instantly appears. But for the civilian sector, not so much. But keep in mind, there are several civilian companies that are working on these 2 or 3 craft that we're all fairly familiar with, that are not the big military contractors that we're also familiar with. So you've got some new players in this field.
Yeah, well, Nick Cook was talking about the size of this Black Project budget, essentially, in that he says a lot of the dollars started in the Reagan administration and have only gone up since then, to the point of he's now estimating. I think in those days he was estimating about $10 billion a year, and now he's estimating about $30 billion.
That sounds familiar.
A year. Yeah.
So on the first show, I did say that this money came out of the Star Wars program, and that I guess he basically backed me up on that.
Yeah. Well, he definitely backed you up on the Reagan administration. Mm-hmm. He was relating it a little bit more to the stealth technologies of the, I don't know, is it the B-1 bomber, and what are the original stealth plans?
Well, as far as the stealth technology, it depends on which type of stealth technology. When you're talking about reducing a radar cross signature of an aircraft, then you're talking Lockheed has that locked down as far as all the technology behind it. When you're talking about passive and active systems of camouflage, of actively being like me being right here, boop, I'm gone. You're not dealing with radar cross section at that point. You're dealing with what we talked about before. So that technology is actually coming out from brand new players in this area. So you're looking at that, but you're looking at the usuals, the Boeing, the Raytheon, all the other companies that have some sort of play in a variation of this, or one that may be coming out down the road.
Yeah, he also confirmed that something like this, in his mind, could be kept a secret, because that's one of the things I struggle with, is I just can't imagine how it could be kept secret. But he said that stealth technology was kept secret for a very, very long time before it was finally
Well, you had Have Blue, which is the originator, the precursor to the Nighthawk, which is the F-117A. So from Have Blue to us actually taking a 117A and dropping bombs in South America, then from that time frame is quite substantial. The SO-71, another classic example. We couldn't have built that plane without Russia because we needed the titanium. So we kept that a secret. And we literally received the titanium from Russia and built the plane that flew over Russia. So yeah, a lot of these things had to be kept secret for a long time. But keep in mind the number of people that worked on these projects are in the hundreds and thousands. So to keep that under wraps for that long a period of time is very difficult to do. And you'll have some tiny leaks that come out here and there, but that's also why the military and the government goes compartmentalized, as far as some people work on this aspect, like somebody may work on propulsion, they may work on something different over here, and the two really don't know what the hell was doing.
I think what shocks somebody like Nick Cook, who feels like he's really on the inside, even though he's on the outside, but on the inside of what's going on in military technologies and so forth, that in all, and here he wrote this book, which was a 10-year research project, he said, about zero gravity. I think he probably feels, he didn't expressly say this, that someone would have tipped him off. He would have had some inkling.
Why me?
I'm saying he would have had himself some inkling that this exists. He's got zero inkling that the U.S. has developed this technology. He acknowledges, as most scientists seem to, that it is theoretically possible, but that we're just, he's got zero inkling that we have anything close to this.
Okay, well, the problem I have with that is now you're back to saying that the guys are liars, or that the guys did not see exactly what they saw, or something else was going on.
Yeah, well, basically, here's the three options for Mike Turber, other than him just, telling the truth. One is it's disinformation, which he basically says, Nick Cook says there's a lot of disinformation agents out there. That is a real...
I've never met one.
That's a real thing. But it's a real thing, right?
Yeah, I want my check.
But disinformation agents is a real thing.
Yeah, I mean, not in this domestic category like this. As far I have never met anyone inside the United States that goes out and does what people think I'm doing right now. I've never in my life seen that.
But how do you know?
I mean, I'm sure it happens to some degree. But where the disinfo happens that I'm familiar with is when we're in other countries, and we're trying to propagandize.
Well, but this does pertain to other countries because we may or may not want to lead them to believe that we have this. That was one of Nick Cook's big points: is that, hey, let's cause somebody to go get scared, start spending, blowing, wasting billions of dollars chasing something. Holy cow, the U.S. has this. Let Xi Jinping, is that his name, in China, go yell at his people and have a bunch of people killed because they didn't beat the U.S. to this, et cetera.
Think about it this way: this information has been out since December 14th, officially or semi-officially, December 14th of 2017. Since then, a lot of people have discussed this subject, and what I'm talking about is a little bit different, maybe a little bit new, but no one from the government has come out and said that we're lying. No one's come out and said that we're wrong, and no one has said anything to anything that anyone said. And there's some thoughts to go behind that to say, well, they're not going to get involved because now you're getting into some conspiracy realm. The problem is you have actual guys that are trained to observe, and that's what they did. They observed things and they reported them, and now they're getting they're getting their vindication now a little bit. I hope they feel that. But at the same time, they also went through a lot of hell. Many years behind the scenes without anyone knowing it, of sitting there night after night, thinking back, probably going, wow, that's sticking out in my mind. I want to know what that is. Just like if you've ever seen a UFO or seen a ghost or seen anything out of the ordinary, you probably think back on it periodically, and it may bother you. This, however, is not you. It's many people saw this, and many people experienced it, and their stories are checking out. I have an issue with someone coming through who was a part of it, almost in a roundabout way discrediting the other guys. I have a problem with that, but I'm not in the know. I wasn't inside that group and could point either direction and say, well, he's right or he's right. Farver's right for or whatever his name is. I got Fravor. He's, in my opinion, I feel badly for the other guys because it's almost like he's kind of saying, well, you guys might be embellishing this a little bit. You're stretching stuff or whatever. And I don't feel they are. I feel their stories are accurate. Based on my knowledge of what I have seen and heard and listened to the comms myself, that it's exactly as they say, and his comms were part of those comms.
Mm-hmm. So disinformation, you're saying, doesn't make sense. The U.S. government wouldn't want to lead people to believe falsely that this is U.S. technology and therefore not get an edge on its opponents, or believe that it's not extraterrestrial.
We could flip that coin all day long, and it's going to be 50-50 flip each time. The situation there is that you're taking a situation or you're taking a technology, and you're saying you're either bluffing that you have it and you want them to go waste a bunch of dollars to try to duplicate you, or you actually do have it and you want them to waste a bunch of dollars trying to duplicate you. Either way, the result's the same. you're not gaining anything. So they're going to be spinning their wheels trying to do this either way. So I don't think so. I don't think that would be the case. And in my experience with the government, as far as doing disinfo here, you got your PR people that go out and do their job, of sugarcoating things. And we witnessed that through the Vegas situation. So with, Aaron Rouse staring down Lombardo from behind for weeks on end. But was that disinfo? Was he being told what to say? And if that's the case, then you have to determine how much of that is us trying to calm down the public or trying not to create some sort of mass hysteria or whatever. In this case, I think the important part of the story that I feel needs to get out is the fact that these are not extraterrestrial. They are here. Even if China made them or whoever made the things. But the problem with that is that wouldn't fit the story in San Diego because we would have tried to take them out, or there would be a lot of things going on.
The other piece of the story that's still hard to really piece together is the Navy patents, the 2017 Navy patents. It's like, wait a minute, why are they patenting something if it already exists? Why didn't they do it under a privacy shield, classified shield, which they theoretically could have done?
Right.
Is that disinformation?
Well, we don't know what that's for. The Tic Tacs have obviously been out for a long time. So if they've been out, then that technology has already been patented. And is it different technology than the Navy? I don't know.
Maybe it is. It certainly seems to be describing a Tic Tac if you read that patent.
I agree. I agree.
But is it another way of creating a Tic Tac type flying device? Possibly.
Well, with patent law, everybody believed there was a certain percentage of change. Like, okay, we can patent this. Like in 2004, here we have the original Tic Tac. Oh, now we got a little bit of a different idea. Let's do the gimbal with a different manufacturer,
right,
and we'll patent that separately, and that way both are covered. Okay, why would one patent be publicly accessible and known, and the other patent not? Are the two technologies that different, or are they so close that they felt that the original patent, is going to be revealed at some point in time anyway, so let's just go ahead and just do a new patent and we'll say this is it. And you have the Navy doing one and the Air Force doing the other.
Then the next option, I guess, and Michael, you have to weigh in if I'm not getting this correctly, is that somehow Turber might truly believe this himself, that maybe that the government, altered reality, altered perception, altered consciousness, and that you'd be amazed what the military is capable of doing as far as playing with people's minds.
Well, that's getting into psyops and various McUltras and things like that. When you get into that, are they doing that to this day? I'm sure they probably are. Is this that? No, I don't believe that this. I'm not a part of it. That's just not my. That's not anyone that knows me knows that I would never be a part of anything even remotely.
You were never hypnotized at any point by put into a room and
he said the keyword. No, no, I have never been in a situation, and I would never allow myself to do it. I'm pro government, pro USA, pro this, whatever, if you want to look at it that way. But at the same time, there's a point where the BS ends and reality begins. And if you have the government doing things that's suppressing technology and not allowing civilization to move forward, I got a problem with that. Okay, because it's supposed to trickle out. NASA did a lot of things that we gained a lot of technology from, and everyone can relate to that because we've all seen it. But when it comes to military, our first thoughts is that this is somehow bad technology because they develop weapons. But from those developed weapons, they come up with lasers that can be focused down to such a small size that they can go in and start taking out different cancers or what have you. So these technologies that these contractors are coming up with in these civilian companies is something that should be fostered and pushed forward. And I think it should be open. I'm of the same thought process that Elon Musk is, that just do it. Give it away. Just let everybody have it. If someone comes out with a competing technology that, they're going to use it against you, you don't want necessarily like an Iran to get it or something like that. So you still have to be the leader of the pack. But at the same time, some of these technologies that can transform us for the better, end global warming, and do all the different things that we want to have done, put your money where your mouth is and do it. You know.
So your phone and or you flying across country in an hour and 24 minutes. We got a couple comments from that saying that, well, an hour and 24 minutes, that's not that fast. There are existing craft that can take you from the West Coast to the East Coast in an hour and 24 minutes. Which I've heard others say that's not true. But what's your reaction?
Yeah,
to that?
First off, that is not true. The craft that could have done that would have been the SR-71. Craft that are currently in the inventory that could get close to that would be some of the faster craft. Any supersonic plane could get close to that number. The thing about that time getting from the East Coast to the West Coast, an hour and 24 minutes, the only plane that comes to mind is SR-71. And
Tell me about that plane.
The SR-71? Yeah. What would you like to know?
Well,
the speed or the engines?
What is it? Why is it retired now?
Well, it's retired because it's
and what type of craft was it?
Anytime you retire something, the logical thought process is something is replacing it, is replacing that technology. So the platforms keep moving higher and higher. So if you can put a space-based telescope that can take a look down on the ground and see the same things that the SR-71 could, and you're not risking having one shot down over enemy territory and what have you, then let's do.
So that was a spy plane.
Yeah, the SR-71 spy plane. Yeah,
and its fastest speed was what?
2,500 miles an hour, or something.
Wow.
Like that. Yeah, it's pretty fast. I mean, it's faster than that, but that was the speed that it could attain, and it's using technology that is there. It is right there.
And how many of these were there?
That I don't know. Not a large number. Maybe around 20 or less, I believe. And there was variants of it. One was made for the CIA, which is the YF-12. You had the SS-71, which is the reconnaissance version for primarily for the Air Force.
Was this developed at Plant 42?
Nope. Well, kind of, sort of, because it's in the same area. It's developed by Lockheed, and that was the Skunk Works, Kelly Johnson.
And they don't fly them at all right now. They're totally retired.
Correct.
Tell us a little bit more about. I mean, so many people are trying to discredit you in so many different ways and saying that, okay, even if military sources have disclosed things to him about this, that could simply be disinformation. The only thing that keeps it that would quiet the people who are saying it's disinformation is if you actually saw it yourself. So are you able to open up a bit about
I don't want to go there.
Whether or not you've actually seen it yourself, flown on one, et cetera?
Well, the reason that
because I know on the one hand you say that's a distraction, but on the other hand I'm kind of thinking, well, yeah, but people are saying this is a disinformation guy. So.
It actually wouldn't matter how I answered that question. If it's going to be the same result. If I say yes, I saw it, they're going to say, okay, then why you? What made you special that allowed you to see it? And then I have to reveal some stuff I don't want to reveal. Okay. So that presents that issue. So I would prefer to steer away from that, and my focus would be on the information itself, the fact that the craft do exist, and that they are ours. It's not that big concern or what have you. But you're going to have the other side that's going to just blast me, saying this technology doesn't exist, blah blah, which is what we're experiencing. But the question I have for you is real simple. Occam's razor, just reduce this down to the simplest possible answer. If those things were either extraterrestrial or from another country, we would have reacted to them completely differently than how we did down there. Okay, we would not have been so nonchalant, like, let's let the Princeton go into port, let's just take some of the data bricks out, and let's just go look at this data, and let's not attempt to shoot them down. I mean, they were there for days. Again, I want to emphasize that point. These craft were seen over a period of days.
And same thing with the one off of Jacksonville, right?
Correct. And they were there for hours and hours on end. It wasn't, why weren't we going after these things left and right? I mean, it should have been like a scene, from Independence Day, where we just, oh my God, these things are everywhere. Just keep sending aircraft out to intercept these objects. That didn't happen. It didn't happen for a reason. And that reason, I think anyone else can figure out.
And what about a technology that would make people, it would appear to people that they're seeing something that's real, but in fact it's not real?
Well, then you're stepping into holograms. You're stepping into quite a few other technologies that are equally impressive to a degree, but obviously this would trump them. literally and figuratively. But the fact of the matter is that the technology exists to fake this. Okay, where they can fake the radar screen. Someone can go in there and do these things. But the problem is the guys that are there that work on this stuff. You know, it's no one. None of those guys are trying to convince us that these things were real. All they're trying to say is that this is the experience that I went through. This is what I saw, and someone came forward. I'm going to support this guy. This guy's going to support this guy. Here's some guys that are getting together, and maybe some more will come forward, which did happen. And I think that's how Ryan came out. And there may be some more. I guarantee you there's more. And then here's this guy that wasn't even there, that came out of the clear blue, had nothing to do with it, didn't even know anything about it until a year or more later, who has other pieces of information that may help these guys. And and that's what I'm here for. I wasn't there. I'm not claiming I was there or part of that operation or part of the project or the X number that these things are assigned to. So nothing of that nature. So I'm not making any of those claims. I have nothing to gain or anything by that. But what I feel is important is that the information that I'm giving is not so crucial to the United States security that it affects us or impacts us in a negative way. So I can sleep soundly tonight, not thinking that some guy's going to come up and whack me in the middle of the night, or I'm going to be taken off to Leavenworth or something like that. But if I do, I might need a lawyer.
So people tend, I get eye rolls whenever I suggest that you may have possibly flown in one, and then I think I get even bigger eye rolls when I talk about one of them being flown to North Korea. Mm-hmm. What can you say about us sending one to North Korea?
That information was passed to me by someone who I implicitly trust. Now, what it exactly did when it went there, I don't know. I kind of have an idea. Basically, you're proving you can do something.
You're showing off.
You're showing off your technology, and you're saying, "Look, if I can put this right there."
Well, what do you think would be the best way to show that technology off to the North Koreans if you were trying to intimidate somebody?
Honestly, I think that was pretty funny. I think well, it had to be Trump. What he did, I would probably have that as a possible thought, because I look for the comedy side of things, or just to show you something. And if it was an important time and place to do that, and he did that, but my problem with it is I think that technology was not necessary to show to him at that time. That's my honest opinion. I think that was not a wise
Well, my
choice.
view is that negotiation all comes down to China. China's going to tell Kim when to do a deal and when not. As long as we're screwing with them on trade, they're going to say, keep screwing with Trump on nuclear weapons.
And a valid point, in that point being that we weren't really showing Kim, we were showing China.
Yeah, they certainly would have.
We weren't going to send one down.
Well, I also say if there was ever a president who was going to look at that and choose to show it off, he's the guy.
Yeah, and how convenient that he was.
So,
there,
you might find it, you might scoff at it and think, oh, come on, who's going to choose to do it? I'm like, well, Trump does, he doesn't follow the usual path.
Right. And to add to that mix, that wasn't the only demonstration. So there was an additional demonstration that I have been told about that involves a different president of a different country and involves a war in Syria. So there was also a proof of technology there, too, which happened the very next day. That's my understanding.
And that would be Putin?
Could be.
And again, how would you exactly show it off? Show it off in a way that it shows up on their radar, or send it hanging out outside the Kremlin?
How would I do it?
Yeah.
I would just park it right in front of his door, and when he walks out, boom, bangs into it, and then take off.
Put a big U.S. flag on it, and
just or drop little leaflets from. I don't know. I mean,
And to be clear, you're not claiming that you were on the Tic Tac when you flew to meet Putin, right? I just want to clarify.
No, I'm not claiming that.
You were not
claiming
that.
No, I would have. I would not have been on it because it would be very windy, so I would have been in it.
It'd been very windy where?
And it would have been windy on it, so I would have to be in it.
Oh, no,
that's all a George Carlin joke.
Sorry, okay.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. No, the thing about the uses of it as to whether you're using, I mean, this is where people look at me and the things I'm saying, they're going, okay, this is borderline bizarre and silly, but we've done some rather silly things to prove our technology. Okay, so when I say something like that, I look at it from the outside too. Go, well, this has really gone off the deep end. Jim, why are you even interviewing this guy? This guy's obviously a wackadoodle. Get him off your show. But in reality, we've done a lot of that in history. I've personally witnessed it, so I know that we do that. It's not something we put on the front page and go, ha, 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 we're just going to screw with you. But we've screwed with other countries quite a bit doing really wild, crazy things. So this is not out of the norm by any means.
Well, the other thing Michael and I were talking about after the Nick Cook interview, when I'm learning how much money is going into these black box operations, if it's $30 billion a year, whatever the number is, there should be some serious stuff that's been developed for that kind of money.
Absolutely.
You give $30 billion to a Silicon Valley company, and they're going to come up with some pretty cool stuff. Now, this is the government, so half of it's going to be wasted. Right? But the other $15 million times 30, if this is going on for 30 years, that's a lot of money, and that's not just making B-1 bombers.
Right, and if you go back in history, you'll see where anti-gravity was a lot. Money was put into those projects quite a bit, and then it was pulled back because they just weren't getting the desired results. So now the technologies that are being developed with the military and the DARPA arm, keep in mind DARPA is pretty much an open agency. I mean, you can go join it yourself if you want. You can become a part of what's called Open Catalog and participate. So the thing about DARPA is that the technologies that they get, that money, remember when in the old days you had these black bag projects that the money had to go out and Senate Appropriations Committee or someone had to approve it, and then it was funneled in some other name, and then that money was trickled out to the eventual program. Now you have DARPA that's openly showing you the technologies that they're working on. And then the companies that are working at like Boston Dynamics with the robots we've seen here, the last year, that's all DARPA technology that's basically been kicked back into the private sector for them to develop it further. So DARPA has a very unique role in this, and that it played an integral role in the initial technology of pulling it from one university or another one and putting the money into it and actually making something that functions. That makes all the difference in the world.
So I think the last critique I can think of that's being raised is that you clearly know a lot, but everything that you've said on this show are things that you could pick up by doing a lot of internet research and then kind of putting all the pieces together and then just coming out flat out and saying it's U.S. technology. So it's really you being a smart guy that's put a lot of pieces together, read a lot of things, surmised a lot of things, but you're really just coming out with your opinion, even though you're calling it fact.
But no one else has done this. No one else has actually said the things I've said. So the information that I have is different. It's something that's not just what I've.
Well, certainly asserting that it's U.S., that it's the Air Force. Yes, but everything else that kind of leads to that conclusion, you could kind of find.
Well, someone could sit there and probably brainstorm it over a period of a few days and go, "Wow, this must be how this would have worked out." So let me go with this as a best guess scenario and get that information out there. So
I'm going to go out and say it as if it's fact, just to get more attention.
Yeah, and then I would be ruining our friendship by using you to put out some crazy. For what benefit?
Yeah.
My answer.
Well, I'm standing by you so far, my friend. I am a believer. Sometimes I'm.
I
find it hard to believe that I'm a believer. But as you sit here, and I haven't actually wavered. Michael will tell you, I haven't wavered, despite the people we've interviewed, in believing what you're saying.
I know, and I appreciate that. And when you were on the other show the other day, I could.
Jeff Rentz.
Yes, I could sense that there was, some differences of how both of you believe, and definitely differences of how I believe. And if he wanted to interview me on his show, that would be
and definitely differences about Vegas.
Yeah, definitely differences there too.
By the way, that's something we should address too, because Rentz immediately linked you. Aha! Wait a minute, this can't be a coincidence. He was researching Vegas, and he happens to know about this. Aha!
Obviously, disinfo.
Obviously,
multiple shooters and blah blah blah. And he way he was talking to you was telling you specifically that anyone would be an idiot to believe whatever other way.
Right.
I don't do that way. My investigation in Las Vegas, my investigation here will stand on its own. When I put that information out there, no one has debunked me on Vegas. and no one's going to debunk me here because the information I'm putting out is what I feel is factually true.
But am I right that a lot of people in the so-called Vegas community are not happy with you because they feel like you've closed the door on any possibility other than Paddock acting alone?
No, it's not necessarily Paddock because I can't put the weapon in Paddock's hand. I don't have the ballistics for it. I can say that the bullets came from that room and feel very confident in that with the audio analysis.
Well, if you were a prosecutor and Paddock was still alive, don't you think you'd have a pretty good case and you'd be taking that case to trial and saying this guy did it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would be very confident in that. Even his own brother, who speaks to me as well, believes his own brother did it. So I think that that kind of goes without saying. If I present information, generally that's a tenth of what we're looking at. It's like a tip of the iceberg because all the other information that I have, I can't really put it on the table and say I would stand on the witness stand and swear to this. But the information that I have put out, I would. And I would do it here on the information I've given you today.
So what about the blowback thing, though? Am I right that people are not happy with you because they're still clinging to various conspiracy theories on Vegas?
Right, because you've got the helicopter theory, you've got Saudi theory, you've got people that believe there were multiple shooters, but they all believe that based on information that is on faulty evidence or reporting or
You've
whatever.
looked into it. You had a very open mind going into it. I had a very open mind going into it.
And now where do you believe?
I believe that Paddock acted alone.
Yep,
I mean, all the pieces fit in to place that, how he got the guns up there, why he did it, problems with money, psychiatric problems, the history in the family, et cetera, et cetera.
And look where we are, where people interact with us is either on YouTube or various other places. And the interactions that we get are with people that believe no one died or all these different theories that they feel. And that, for me, is just something I would personally would rather not even respond to, but sometimes you can't help it. You kind of find yourself having to respond to these people, and you do, and you try to be respectful, but then as time goes on, it gets to the point where you're just really tired of it.
Okay, anything else that we should add to the Tic Tac story at this time?
I was trying to get that for you today. Okay. I was trying to get something a little bit more time. And I understand that this is a hard pill to swallow, just like I said before. I get it. I understand it. And the thing is, the test of time is going to come out and do this because I can't come in here with a bunch of documents and throw them on the table and say, hey, here's this, here's this, here's this. That's jeopardizing a lot of lives. I would never do that, okay? And anyone that would do that, I think, would have a potential problem, okay? So that's not going to happen. But what will happen is that certain information is going to come out, and it will be relatively soon that we will see more and more maybe people that are in the know, kind of like I was, which was kind of an odd situation for me to get into this. But there are other people out there kind of in a similar state that are not currently in the military and that may want to reveal what they want to do. And when they do, we will hear it. And
so when you say you were hoping to have something for me today,
I was hoping, yeah.
Give me a hint as to what type of thing?
I was just going to fly one down here and just.
Well, you already tried that trick on me once. That's not going to work the second time.
Again. I can't pull the curtain back. Basically, it was just going to be something a little bit more tangible, something that make you specifically feel more comfortable with what. And I think you and I have, in the past, something would come up, or I think we did a thing for you. Like you had someone you were looking for, you hadn't been able to find in years, or what have you. May have tried other avenues, and then you tested me, or I gave you the opportunity to test me, and I came through, right?
Yep.
So those are things that I'm constantly having to prove myself because I'm not currently sitting on the board of the directors of Bose Allen. I'm not currently, running some huge conglomerate corporation for cybersecurity and cyber threat assessment. I'm not sitting at CNN every night blasting away some of the newest intel reports.
I was hoping at least for maybe some threads from the carpeting of the Tic Tac. Maybe you could bring those in for me.
No carpet.
No carpeting.
No carpet.
Little paint? Scratch off some paint?
I might be able to do that. No.
Michael, let's get Michael. You got anything?
A question from either YouTube or Facebook. I don't remember. They wanted to know what to make when Fravor first saw the Tic Tac. It was above the water, and there was the disturbance in the water, and I believe they said there was something under the water as well. What do you know about that?
The way my understanding is this: when the craft operates underwater, it makes what would visually be a much larger disturbance, or the appearance of a much larger disturbance than what you would see in the air. The water's 25 times more dense than air, therefore I believe what you would see might be 25 times larger, which puts it on the scale of a 737, which is about what they said. So that makes sense to me. Whether or not that's the right answer, it's just a really quick response to that, because I thought about that too, as to what that could have been. Somebody I think brought up maybe there's a mothership underwater and that they were launched from that. I don't know, but I do believe the craft either went underwater or another one was underwater and then went deeper and went out. These things travel so silently underwater, but the problem I have with that is that type of cavitation that you would have underwater to allow them to travel at the velocities that they do, it should be something that we would pick up. That's, again, more technology that I'm not aware of as to how we would be able to track these things, because the submarine that was attached to the Nimitz group had no sighting, nothing on these things.
Yeah, why would that be? Why wouldn't that?
Same reason why the only radar that could pick them up was the Spy 1B on the Princeton.
Because it's moving too quickly?
No, because the type of stealth technology that it utilizes, which I'm also not 100% aware of, allows it to maneuver in space or air or water, I guess, at will without being seen.
Now, that does remind me, in the last interview, I thought you did hint about some knowledge about its underwater capabilities, or another incident was underwater. What can you tell us about that this time?
I can tell you, well, this is another proof that will come out at some point in time. The speed at which it was tracked by a particular submarine was around 500 to 550 miles an hour underwater, which is almost the exact same thing as a commercial airliner, but underwater. So that will...
When was that incident?
I can't say.
And where was that incident?
Can't say.
Okay. But this is another Nimitz-type
This
incident
is another Nimitz
where
type
the
Nimitz.
military tracks something that turns out it's a Tic Tac? Or it's a gimbal?
It's one of the two or three. I don't know. Well, I do know which one, but I'm not going to identify it at this point. I don't know.
So another encounter, and is that another situation where one branch was testing it with another branch?
Well, it would still be Air Force, and it'd still be Navy. So it's the same thing. I think a lot of people, they have their Monday quarterback rule book that if something goes underwater, it automatically transfers jurisdiction to the Navy. It doesn't really necessarily work that way. But obviously the Navy has their patents, and they're doing their variation of it that will suit whatever job function and missions that they need to have their version do.
Would the thing theoretically be able to travel just as fast underwater as in the air?
I don't know. That's the problem. I'm not. You need to get a quantum physics guy on here to help us go through this.
I think that Navy patent suggested that the answer is yes, that it would travel at the same speed because of this vacuum that it creates that repels air and water molecules. But I'm not.
But
sure
the other thing is maybe it can move at the same speed through it, but whatever bubbles or whatever it's creating behind it may move at that speed. I mean, if an object's moving through a medium at, say, 3,000 miles an hour underwater, perhaps whatever it's leaving in its wake is moving forward as well, but not at 3,000 miles an hour. I don't know. I wish I had those answers, and this will be picked apart, I'm sure, but I'm not.
And bottom line, as you sit here today, would it be your belief that they're in the process of building more of these?
There's a bunch already.
So we already have a bunch and building more?
Well, I know on the Tic Tac side that there was quite a few. I think they were tracking multiple tracks back in 2004.
I think you estimated as many as maybe 20.
Yeah,
in
back
the Nimitz
then.
incident.
Yeah, back then. My thought is this: I don't think these cost as much to build as people would think. They're trying to equate this technology to that of an aircraft carrier or a B-2 bomber. And the technology sounds sensational enough to where, wow, we must have paid billions of dollars for these things, maybe for the initial ramping up of the technology, but I don't think they cost.
Well, there's no carpeting in them, so they saved on that.
They did save on that. Yeah.
And it's really just kind of a Tic Tac shell.
Yeah,
but the expensive thing that's in there is this it's not a reactor, but whatever this thing is that's generating the energy, presumably would be the most expensive component of it.
I would think, but even then, since we don't know, and they built so many. I mean, think about this: we only have a few B-2 bombers. We only have a few of various craft that cost so much money, but we have a lot of these that were out in 2004 that were obviously tracked and what have you. I think they said there were 10 to 20 pieces that were tracked at that time. So, and I kind of agree with that based on my information as well. I think that that's fairly accurate number. And I think they travel in lot numbers of 5 for some reason, and I don't know why. So it would be 5, 10, 15, 20, so that would make sense. But as far as the cost to build these things, just by over the years of me thinking on this, I don't think these things cost nearly as much as we would think they would cost, and that they could. I mean, I guess we're getting ready to see Amazon fly these things to your house. You can get it in 15 minutes, whatever you order. So I'm not saying that, but I think that the technology, after they got over the hump of getting it, is not nearly as expensive.
Taking it back to SpaceX and Musk, we talked a little bit about that. Have you learned anything more about what is your thoughts as to whether a company like SpaceX also has this technology or something similar?
There's a gifting, kind of like a gifting program, so to speak, and that when technology is thought that a certain company could best utilize it and or develop it beyond where it's at, then that is done at the highest levels and what have you, and it's still top secret and what have you. So these guys don't come in there and get it and then run back to, hey, look what we got, for free, and start selling it and making money, because that defeats the purpose of the program to begin with, and that's where DARPA comes in again. So I believe the projects do come back to DARPA. DARPA monitors it, and then they manage wherever the technology goes. I'm not 100% positive on that. So someone will rip that apart too. But as far as I know, that's kind of how it works.
So good reason to believe that perhaps they have shared this with somebody like SpaceX.
Yeah, I believe that. Yeah, I believe that's already happened. Yeah, I believe that's already happened. That and the Blue Origins and what have you.
We have a birthday to celebrate. Unless Michael's got a last question over there.
One last question,
please.
Do you know if there is any limit on the size that these can be currently or in the future?
I think based on the size of just talking Tic Tac for the moment, the size of it, I believe, was done so it could be moved around on trucks or what have you, or rail cars without it creating a problem. Because Aurora was huge. And you have these crafts that are hundreds of feet long, moving around the sky and blocking out, different things. Those are hard. And what is the tactical advantage to that? Is there really one? I mean, hey, do we see these Aurora triangular craft going off and doing wonderful things for the country? I haven't seen it. But this particular craft, I think this is the game changer. Even though the craft, as far as I know, can't be weaponized to the point where it does whatever, but you can fly these things at pinpoint accuracy to any spot on the planet, and if they don't cost that much, blow it up. That's very intimidating, and that's what we do. That's why we're the only superpower on the planet, is by doing that. Now, a question I have for anyone watching this is, are we overstepping bounds on any treaties that we may have? I haven't really heard a lot about that, but if we have a technology,
well, if you put nukes on it, then there's a lot of nuclear treaties.
Right.
I'm not sure what else.
Right.
That would probably be
exactly. But having the capability of putting a nuke on it, are we transcending anything that might be written into some treaty that we have somewhere that might be a problem? And that's an area that I'm going to look into next, because I think that could be an issue.